In this video, I'm going to teach you how to make one of these. This is a tabletop strop, no handle on it. Place it down onto your work surface. It can be a paring stone if you're using a skiving knife. You can then quickly strop, carry on working, and anytime you need to strop again, you don't have to move your body position. You don't have to stop holding the piece that you're working on. You can then simply carry on. If you're on a work surface like this or a cutting mat and you're using your knife, strop each side, carry on cutting, lose that edge, go back to it, and then carry on cutting. Really quick, really simple, and very, very efficient. You don't have to stop what you're doing, move around, go and find your strop. It's right there on the table, and when you don't need it, you can place it out the way. And after a while, if you need to reprofile your blade and stropping no longer does the trick, I'm going to show you a quick, simple method to do that. So let's get started by showing you exactly what you'll need. Okay, so the two materials we have are the wood and the leather, and also some rubber, okay, which I'll talk about in a second. So this is the leather here, English bridle leather. Sanded the surface, given it a really small nap on there. This would be called nubuck leather now, okay? And you can feel the difference. It's not quite suede-y, but it has a really silky feel to it, and you can actually put patterns in it with your fingers. That's what you're really looking for. So that's what we're working with here. If you don't sand the surface, it's going to be very, very difficult to get any compound on there. I like to use the grain surface because it's firmer. It doesn't round the blade so much, rather than just using the flesh side. The flesh side will actually polish a little bit faster, but it can round the blade a little bit, meaning you have to keep reprofiling it. That might or might not be an issue for you. So English bridle leather, it could any vegetable tan leather, guys. It doesn't have to be English bridle. Regular, firm vegetable tan leather, the firmer the better, okay? And this thickness-wise is what we're working with here. Let's have a look. Thickness-wise, we're looking at just under 2.5 millimeters, so 2.5 mil. The rubber, okay, is what I'm going to use to get this to stick to the table. So this is simply just rubber flooring. This is in fact some offcuts from rubber flooring that I use to line my workshop, my other workshop where I do most of my woodworking now. But this is ribbed, okay? And that's gonna be good for two things. One, gripping. And number two, we can bury some panel pins, these little things here. We can bury some of those in between so that they're below the surface. The idea is you want something that's gonna grip the surface. So when you're stropping, you don't have to hold it, okay? This isn't gonna come with a handle. You don't have to hold it. You can just strop and it will stick to the table. So we have our wood, our 2x1 planed, 45 millimeters by 20 millimeters, some 2.5 millimeter English bridle leather or vegetable tan leather, and you sand the grain surface. I use about 240 grit, and we're just scuffing up the surface, and that's it. I've cut some 1-inch strips of rubber, and this rubber measures 3.3, okay? So about 3.5 millimeters. It's higher than the leather, okay? And that's gonna be important later on because there's a little bonus tip to make this strop even better that I'm gonna show you in a little bit later on. So stay tuned for that. So first things first, I'm gonna put this strip of leather just to one side here. And I'm gonna focus on a piece of 2x1 and also our pieces of rubber. And I'm going to use contact adhesive for this, ideally solvent-based if you're gluing rubber to wood, but you can get away with using water-based if you need to. And this is going to make things a little bit easier on the stick. I'm going to take two pieces here. We add a little bit of contact adhesive. Any questions on the live, guys, you feel free to ask. Getting a bit messy there. Gonna put some on the other pieces. I'll let that dry for a couple of minutes. I'm gonna do the other side as well. Let's give that a wipe down. Hi, what am I working on? I'm working on making a tabletop strop, which is a small strop that sticks to the surface of the table so it doesn't move around when you use it one-handed. Okay, panel pins. These pins are 16 millimeters by about 1 millimeter. In old money, that's 5/8 of an inch. Okay, so just take a small handful, make that dry a little bit faster, get high on fumes. So I'm going to take a couple of these now, and I'm simply going to stick them to the end, so end to end, and then just press that down. Same on the other side, opposite end actually. Did pair these up. Last one. Okay, and then just give that a good firm press. Okay, next, just going to lift up one side and make a few cuts just to go through that rubber. So just trimming off the excess now. It's always a good idea to nail these down afterwards because they can come off sometimes if they get caught in something. Okay, so this is what we're looking at so far. Okay, so we have an inch, roughly 25 millimeters of rubber, ribbed rubber on each end, and already there it sticks. Okay, any kind of pressure down and it really sticks to the table. Okay, I can literally move the table around without too much difficulty. So you only need a little bit on each end, it doesn't have to be covered. So taking some panel pins, mind your fingers on this guys, and also make sure you're wearing eye protection. Lead by an example and all that. You don't need too many on this, I'm just going to use 4 each side. Use the back end, that's what it's for. And it goes below the surface. That's what we're looking for there. All right, you don't have to use any not large nails or anything like that, just small ones. That's all you really need just to keep it in place. 2 more and we're done. No more bang bang. And the last one. Okay, double check, make sure they're all below the surface. Anything that's proud needs to be flattened down. Yeah, we're all good. Okay, double check, make sure. If anything is proud, then it's going to slide around, all right, because it will lift off the rubber from the surface of the table. So that's just going to ensure that we have full contact, but also we're going to keep these rubber pieces retained. Now, we're going to take our English bridal leather. Bang bang, says Chakra Hides. Yes, exactly, bang bang. No more bang bang. Okay, what's he making? I'm making a tabletop strop. Tabletop strop. Okay, is that a square end? Yes, it is, so that makes life a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do is butt that up against one side. Okay, so you can see I'm butting it up against there. And I'm going to make a mark with a pen that I left handy within my vicinity. Oh, right, yep, that'll do. I'm going to take a pen, make sure one side's level there, tilt it so I can see, and then just mark that. Okay, if it's too tight, we can always take a little bit more off. Bring that mark to the surface, and then just square that off using a little engineer's square there. Okay, let's replace our pen. that. Okay, so let's see if this fits. All right, so yeah, nice and snug. So let's get some contact adhesive. First things first, I'm just going to take a roughing tool and rough the back. This is actually a finished back on this English bridle. Ordinarily that's great, but we don't want a finished back for this. We want to open it up. Finished back just means the flesh side has been processed and given like a fake grain. Well, not a fake grain, but a fake surface finish. Get some glue on there. Get a good amount. Nice and messy. Really press it in there. Leave that to one side. And again, on one side of here, we're going to add some contact adhesive. So a little bit on there. Won't need so much because it's not going to soak in. It's not particularly porous. Not in the same way leather is. Just make sure you get it right to the very ends. Okay, we're going to give this a couple minutes just to dry up, removing any excess there. Another minute or so, that should be ready. So yeah, I've made this oversized. As you can see, it's a little bit wider, and that way I can actually trim this up. So we get nice, accurate edges. Otherwise, you have to kind of trim it up and then make sure you're laying it down accurately on the sides as you go. This way you can just slap it on and then just trim it up, and you've got something that's nice and even on the edges. This project is so neat. Thank you very much. I'm actually out of my regular contact adhesive. Well, not out of it, I've got several tins left. I'm out of the solvent to thin it down. So I'm using some backup gel contact adhesive, which is a rather sticky substitute. Okay, so now we've got contact adhesive on the wood, contact adhesive on the leather itself. So I can place this down. Okay, leaving a slight overlap on each end. I'm going to lay the opposite end down second, and then I can just press in the middle. Okay, if you have a roller, just go to town with that. Okay, now you'll be able to feel, if you've done this correctly, that these are higher than the leather, which means when I've placed it down this way, the leather is not actually touching the table, it's very slightly off. So if you have any dirt or debris on this side of the table, when you turn it back, it's not going to be scratching up your knives because this doesn't touch the table. And there's a reason we're going to have it on this side, which I'll show you in a minute. In the meantime, I'm going to sharpen up my blade. Nice and sharp, and along those trim edges here, I'm going to make a very light score first of all. If you put too much pressure and you accidentally start cutting into the wood, it's a pain in the ass to get around it. Okay, at this point as well, we've got sharp edges, so I like to just trim those up. I'm going to take a number 3. And just bevel those edges, okay? So just trimming off. Okay, if you've got any excess glue on the side, you can simply take piece of crepe rubber, okay, and going downwards, just remove that. I'll probably do that afterwards. It'll come off the wood, it'll come off the leather, no problem at all. okay? And now we can actually charge this up with your preferred compound, okay? But before we do that, I'm going to talk about the other side, okay? Now, if ever you start to lose that sharpness with your knife, okay, and you strop it again, if you're using a strop with, say, 3 microns of abrasive particles in there, that's great for putting a polish on there. But if you've, I don't know, gone over a bit of grit or something like that that's impregnated into your work surface, and work surfaces do get grit in them from time to time, especially if you sand over them, that happens. You know, no amount of polishing is really going to get rid of that. What you want to do is use a fine abrasive just to re-profile that edge for a few swipes, and then do a little bit of polishing on the edge of your blade, okay? So what I'm going to do on this side is I'm going to take some sticky back abrasive paper, okay? I say paper, this is actually, I think it's like a polyester plastic impregnated with, I don't know exactly what kind of silicon oxide or something like that, aluminium oxide. Whatever the case, it works really well. It's made by Hermes, okay? So Hermes, not Hermes, the famous luxury brand, but Hermes. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to take this abrasive paper and I'm going to mark a cut line. Doesn't have to go snug up to the end on this one because you will want to remove it eventually to replace it. Okay, it comes on a roll, so it wants to naturally pop up like so. So I'm just going to square that end off there. And I'm going to use just a regular Stanley blade here. And just trim that up. I'm just going to trim very slightly behind the line. Okay, now placing it inside, I'm going to make a mark on one side and a mark on the other for the width, okay? It's not so easy to turn this over and trim it like we did with the leather. The main reason is because it's so far away from the surface, because we've thickened it out with 3.5 millimeters of rubber. And then just take a slice out there, a bit more on that end. And then keep the excess, okay? Keep the excess and put it aside, because you'll be using it at a later date again. Let's double check that that fits on there. Yep. Making sure there's no bits on here, because if there is, it will sit proud under the abrasive paper. Push the paper up. So I'm going to place that down on there. Just to reiterate, this is 1200 grit. It's a little bit coarse, I'd say, but the main thing is once you start using it, of course, it loses that coarseness. So 1200 will become 1600, will become 2000 grit. So make sure you press that down nice and flat. Finger pressure should suffice. So now if I need to touch up my blade a little bit, all I have to do is just tilt it onto its edge, run it backwards and forwards. Don't go too high, of course. You can still cut into this if you're pulling backwards and forwards. If you're not sure, just go one way. A few times, and then turn it over, and now you can then use your strop. So let's charge this up with some Verde Paris. You can, and I've got some in a jar actually, you can dissolve this down in mineral spirits, or white spirits it's called in the UK. You warm it up very slightly if it doesn't get going, but you can use cheese, like a dollar store cheese grater, just to get some flakes into it, put it in a jar, shake it up overnight, and it dissolves into it. I usually put enough mineral spirits in there so it becomes more of a paste, so you can move it around, move it around if necessary. That's probably one of the best ways of doing it. But this is just fine, and you can see because I've sanded the surface of the grain on this leather, this English bridle leather, it actually pulls the compound off very effectively. Okay, you can go both ways. As long as the majority of the surface is really charged up, that's all you're really looking for. Okay, another way of doing it is once you've done this, you can use mineral spirits and then just rub it in to even it out. But that's mainly going to be, let's be honest, for aesthetic reasons more than anything else, rather than functional. I wouldn't use any kind of oils because oils will then begin to soften the leather, and that's not what you want to do unless you want more of a rounded blade. Okay, it becomes more and more convex as time goes by. So yeah, so one side, backwards and forwards, and that's really going to remove material, and you can see that going darker. You can see particles coming off quite quickly. And then if you have like not a blunt end, but a clip point, I believe that's called, you can then just hold it at 45 as I do, pull down a few times one way every so often, and it redefines that point. Turn it over, and what I'm doing is turning the blade over on each end and pulling backwards, okay? Because obviously if you push in the direction of the blade or pull in the direction of the blade, you'll cut into the leather. So you're going away from the blade like so, and then just turning it on each end. After a while, you'll easily build up a rhythm, but you can see there, no amount of stropping is moving this around. It stays nice and stationary. And every so often, going back onto your abrasive paper just to reprofile that edge, okay? So maybe you've been sanding the edge of your leather with a piece of sandpaper or something similar. Little tiny particles come off. You go over it with your blade, it just strips that end. So no amount of stropping with, you know, something like 3 microns of abrasiveness is really going to do much. You'll go back to your cut and it's still not cutting right. So you can then just redo that edge. Really doesn't take very much at all, just to redo that edge, and then go back a few swipes just to polish it, and you're back in business, okay? So that just kind of saves you. I wouldn't necessarily use this side if you're going to use this with, say, a skiving knife, okay? You can, and that's up to you if you have the skill to do that, but I'd probably use a diamond hone, stones, or even this abrasive paper just stuck down onto a paring stone or an old paring stone, which is what I do. But feel free to use this side. So this is really versatile to have for your cutting blades, for your French edges, for example. A really great one is, you know, you're using it, maybe you're thinning some leather or just working on the edges, and you just want a quick top up. It's not moving around at all, carry on. If you've got a really fine grit on here, you can draw it back a couple times if you need to retouch up that blade, and then polish it again and then carry on. It's just a really handy tool to have, and when you finish with it, just stick it on the side of your work table and it's out the way. It really is convenient. So for a lot of your cutting blades, this is going to be an absolute lifesaver because it's so convenient, really, really easy to make. Only took a few minutes to make, as you saw. But it makes such a difference, and it's so handy to have around. So talking of tools, don't forget to get your tool buyer's guide. It's thousands of people already benefiting from the tool buyer's guide, which is going to show you all the tools you need and what you don't need depending on what level of skill you are. So you can avoid wasting time and money buying the wrong tools that you're probably never going to use, or at least tools that you don't need yet, depending on the level of experience that you have. So head to leathercraftmasterclass.com, enter your email in the pop-up, and I will email you the Tool Buyer's Guide, a 20-page article giving you all the information that you need about tools and links and where to get them from. And as a bonus, you're also going to get the leather selection video, which is a video teaching you how to find and select the highest quality leathers and skins for yourself, so you can get the best leathers for your project, so you can identify what high quality leather is and what poor quality leather is. So you can request samples from your tannery, perform all the tests that I teach you how to do, and then you can decide for yourself if you have something that's worthy of investment or not, and then buy exactly what you need, knowing that you're going to get the best. So link in the description below, head to leathercraftmasterclass.com. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.